You know that feeling, right? The plane hits a little bit of turbulence, your stomach drops, and you grip the armrest just a bit tighter. We've all been there. But what happens when that little jolt turns into something much, much worse? Well, in this explainer, we're diving deep into the truth about in-flight emergencies.
And we're going to start right at the heart of our collective fear, with a moment of absolute crisis, thousands of feet up in the air.
Just think about that for a second. That's a real text message sent from a passenger aboard Southwest Airlines Flight 1380. It's just 4 words, but they paint a picture of a terror that most of us, thankfully, can't even begin to imagine.
So imagine this. You're at 32,000 feet. There's a deafening bang. Alarms start screaming, and the air is literally sucked out of the cabin. This is it. This is the exact scenario that fuels our fear of flying. It's the worst-case scenario, playing out in real time.
But here's where things get really interesting. There's this huge disconnect between that very real fear and the actual statistical reality. Your odds of being in a fatal commercial airline accident, just 1 in 13.7 million. So yeah, the fear feels incredibly real, but the actual risk, it's almost 0.
And that incredible safety record, it's not just luck. Not at all. It's all about the amazing resilience built into modern airplanes. And, just as importantly, the incredible training of the pilots who fly them. They are the reason for that engineered reality.
Okay, this sounds like a straight-up Hollywood disaster movie, right? An impossible situation. Except for the passengers and crew of Air Transit Flight 236, this wasn't a movie. It was terrifyingly real.
So picture this. It's the middle of the night over the pitch-black, empty Atlantic Ocean. And then, silence. Both engines are dead. But instead of panic, the pilots did the impossible. They turned that massive plane into a giant 75-mile glider and brought it in for a perfect emergency landing.
And every single person, all 306 of them, survived. This story is just a brilliant illustration of those layers of safety we're talking about. It's part incredible aircraft design and part unbelievable human skill and composure under the most intense pressure imaginable.
But here's the thing about aviation safety. The challenges are always evolving. And the next big threat isn't something breaking on the plane. It's something coming from way, way above it.
I know, it sounds like science fiction, but this is a very real and actually growing concern for aviation experts. As we fill the skies with more and more flights, the space directly above us is turning into a pretty dangerous and very crowded junkyard.
Yup, space junk. We've basically been turning low Earth orbit into a massive floating landfill for decades now. And it's all just hanging out up there, right above our busiest flight paths. Every piece, from a whole rocket booster down to a tiny nut or bolt, is a potential bullet.
I mean, just look at the sheer amount of stuff that's circling our planet right this second. It is a chaotic mess up there. And, basic physics tells us that what goes up must eventually come down.
And it's not just falling, it's moving at orbital speeds. We're talking 17,000 miles per hour. At that speed, even a tiny fleck of paint can hit an airplane with the destructive force of a bowling ball. It's like a cosmic game of Russian roulette, being played out every single day. And these two trends, they're on a collision course. We've got way more planes in the sky and way more junk in orbit. That 2022 incident when a Chinese rocket forced airspace closures, that was a huge wake-up call. It was the first time this threat literally grounded hundreds of flights. So with all these new and evolving threats, engineers are starting to think differently. They're working on a radical new approach to safety. It's not just about preventing crashes anymore, it's about making them survivable. This insight from a couple of engineers, Eshel Wazim and Dron Srinivasan, it sparked a revolution in their thinking. Their Rebirth project asks a really fundamental question. What if we could actually design a plane to be, crash survivable?
So let's check this out. Let's see how their wild concept for a crash-proof airplane is actually supposed to work. The whole idea here isn't to stop the accident from happening, it's about making sure you can walk away from it.
It's this incredible multi-layered defense system that only kicks in when everything else has already gone wrong. An AI co-pilot basically takes over, a giant airbag cocoons the entire plane, and inside these special smart fluids, materials that go from liquid to solid in a millisecond, harden to absorb the shock. It's a total rethink of what safety even means.
In their simulations, the system was able to reduce the impact force by over 60%. Now that is a life-saving number.
That's the difference between a fatal crash and one you survive. It's literally the difference between life and death. But of course, there's a catch, a big one. All of that amazing life-saving tech is really, really heavy. And making a plane crash-proof creates this huge engineering and economic problem that, frankly, we haven't quite figured out how to solve. At least, not yet.
So, from surviving impossible odds to designing a future where crashes might not even be fatal, the story of aviation is one of constant, relentless innovation. The numbers tell us we're safer in the air than we've ever been. But that fear, that gut reaction, it's still there, isn't it? So the real question is, how far are we willing to go? How much are we willing to spend to engineer that fear away for good?